everybody to Community Corner episode 5. We are so happy to have you here for an episode that's centered around unmasking our students, stopping the insanity that is taking place in the freest country in the world, supposedly. So we are so excited tonight to be here with you. My name is Stephanie Locricchio. I am an advocacy liaison with Children's Health Defense and the co-host of the Community Corner, joined by my beautiful co-host, Aimee Villella McBride.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aimee Villella McBride. I'm also advocacy liaison for Children's Health Defense. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
So, Aim, before we bring our guests on, can we just go through what has happened in the last week?
The insanity that has happened, right?
So in the last week, we have Biden talking about coming door to door to educate and make available the vaccines. I don't know about you, but I've seen probably 7,500 commercials and 2,000 billboards and countless other signs all across. Do you know about the vaccine? Do you know it's available?
Right, seriously. Or let's talk about the number of memes making fun of it as well. I mean, it's just endless.
It is absolutely insane. And then we saw the CDC guidelines come out the other day saying that unvaccinated children should continue to be masked and socially distant, which I think has parents up in arms. And it's crazy because you and I were talking today. We have a lot of stuff and resources coming for all of the viewers in regards to what our options are. If the CDC guidelines do become reality in a school in a neighborhood near you, we are absolutely prepared to prepare you as a parent for what your options are, because we don't want anybody to feel like you have to comply with these insane guidelines. And after our show tonight, if you have any doubts about the masks and what they're doing to our children, what they're doing to us, the guests that we have coming on tonight are going to make clear once and for all that there is no science, there is no benefit whatsoever to what we're doing right now to our children. And we've heard so many times before that the effects that they're having, it's going to be a lasting thing that we're really going to have to undo. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Aimee, to bring on our guests tonight. I'm so excited to have them here.
Yes, we are so excited to have on tonight Kristen Meghan and Tammy Clark. They are experts in this. They have been advocating and sharing information constantly and tireless in this. So we have Kristen Meghan, who has worked in the field of occupational environmental toxicology. She's a senior industrial hygienist. She has 18 years experience within public health and decontamination site management, hazardous materials, etc. She has sat on infectious disease committees within hospitals and trained medical professionals. And she's even, blown the whistle on unethical health and environmental hazards as well, in terms of, exposing information that's been concealed from the public. And she's now a very vocal and passionate freedom advocate, advocating on the fact that masks are just not a one size fits all, treatment that should be for our children. We're also super excited to have on with her Tammy Clark. She is an OSHA environmental health and safety professional. She has over 15 years experience in the field of occupational safety and health. And she's a court-approved subject matter expert on PPE, respiratory protection, health and safety. And she's even worked as a legal expert witness in different court cases related to all these subjects. She also holds several industry certifications in the field of occupational health and safety and environmental health and safety, as well as emergency medicine. And she also has been involved many times in different committees preparing pandemic response and emergency response. So we could not ask for two, more, deep expertise experts to share in this. We have covered masks before, but we're thrilled to have on Kristen and Tammy tonight. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining us so we can dive into this subject, especially, amidst this sanity with the CDC, just coming out with this statement. So I'm sure, most people have heard now that the CDC is coming out saying that the unvaccinated people will need to remain masked, for this fall for school. So we wanted to have you ladies on just to talk a little bit about, some of the risks and some of the harms and really just some of the insanity in terms of continuing to expect children who are the lowest risk group to bear this burden, to continually keep them masked, for the safety of others. So, no particular order, but if you want to just start maybe giving some, perspective, on the issues with masks and children, that would be great.
Yeah, I will actually start because the reason that I became an accidental activist just over a year ago was because of the issue of masking children. That's when I stood up and I started getting really vocal Up until this point, I had been watching what was going on with the, forced masking of the public and forced masking of people just coming and going in our daily lives. And I knew that that was very wrong, because in my career field and in my profession, I'm putting people in respiratory protection devices from infectious disease, from toxins and pathogens in the environment around them all the time. That's what I do. First we test and then we manage the PPE programs, and we do fit tests and we do training and all of that. You do not ever just apply a blanket one size fits all approach. Even during pandemics and emergency situations where there are viruses, we do not throw people in masks. That has never been done before. That's not the way that we handle things. And so this approach, when they started telling people to everybody needed to wear masks, I knew it was wrong, and I was really watching, and I was very vocal. But it was when last summer, it was probably right around this time of the year, last June, they started telling us that our kids were going to start having to wear masks to go to school. And that's where I kind of lost my, because I knew what we were going to be dealing with was exactly what we have dealt with over the last year. And there are more children committing suicide than die from COVID. The mental health crisis that we have created, the greater hazard that we have created. We now know, because we have RCTs, the gold standard for tests, randomized controlled tests and controlled trials. We now have data that shows how dangerous and harmful wearing masks for children really is. But, people in my career field, like Kristen and I, we actually met through this because we were saying the same things. We do the same work, and we were both saying the same things independently of each other. And that's how we met each other, actually, through a local program in Michigan. And I heard her talking and reached out like, oh my gosh, somebody else is saying the same thing. And so we actually got together and started doing videos that, obviously have gone viral. The rest is history since that. But we both predicted what was going to happen with our young population. And we feared that what our kids have dealt with over the last year is exactly what was going to happen. And I'll let Kristen kind of expound on that. But that's the reason I got involved, because I knew how dangerous it was to take this blanket one size fits all approach, cover our kids' mouths, no training. Kids are boogery and snotty and dirty. They're touching their masks all the time, sneezing and in the bathrooms and everything else. And in our career fields, and Kristen, I'll let you kind of expound on that, we knew exactly what was going to happen. And our greatest fear actually did happen, because we did take this approach and forced our children to wear masks all day, every day.
Yeah, and the bigger issue at hand here is a little bit more of my background. I have 12 years experience specifically in pandemic preparedness, planning, and response. The field of industrial hygiene is one that's usually behind the scenes, but we are the first and most vital aspect of this pandemic, because healthcare workers do a great deal on the ground, but what we're doing behind the scenes, like Tammy mentioned, is we are the ones making sure that they're able to do their job safely. So I was trained by the federal government. I was in the military for 9 years, and my point I'm getting to is everything that we've trained for, everything that I have trained healthcare workers to do, we did. You absolutely never put a general populace in masks. And when we talk about masks, before we get into this discussion, I'd like to lay out the most important aspect. There are masks and there are respirators. Not the same. And I know that sometimes I even fumble over that because that's masks, but are not rated by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, or ASTM. These are professional organizations that basically test the ability of personal protective equipment to do its job, what it's claiming to do. So when we don't have this approval, you have to think you can go and buy a mask, not a respirator, a mask, which is viewed as source control or community protection, words that they've just made up. You can buy them at Old Navy, Etsy, CVS, every store, you name it. So when you say masks do this, masks don't do that, let's think about how completely criminal it is to just make a blanket statement and a mandate when, little Joey's mask is different than Sarah's mask with different breathability, different dyes in the fabric, they're laundered different, how long have they been worn? You get my point? So you cannot lump masks in one category. That's why there's not one single study that proves the effectiveness and efficacy of masks, because you cannot test the wide variety. That's like saying gloves will protect you from sulfuric acid. Well, what kind of gloves? But the bigger issue, like Tammy mentioned, is When we even saw, I'm sorry if we're having connection issues. StreamYard does not like my camera, but when we're talking about the children being put into masks, I didn't think anyone had the guts to do so, but we called out all of the adverse events we are now seeing, which is migraine, suicide, mental health issues, pneumonia, strep, staph, you name it. Prolonged mask wearing isn't even designed to be implemented in healthcare facilities, so why are we doing it to our children? So the CDC guidance that we're seeing, the CDC guidance is just guidance because they cannot stop the fear that they need to push or they lose their control. So please, schools, just remember this is guidance and they are not mandates. Because I think there's other reasons at play why they don't want to mandate that again, but that doesn't mean you don't need to be armed to fight this again in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these schools are looking for this guidance just to justify the mandates that they're about to put in. Right before we get into the call, we had some rumblings about things that are going on in New Jersey. They're just waiting.
Right. I think it's, a liability risk adverse thing, but, lots of people like to call us conspiracy theorists. And many of us have been saying for the last 17 months, they're going to keep the kids in masks to condition them so that when the vaccine becomes available for that age group, it's just a swap. And now that's exactly what we're seeing, right? So they are trying to use the masks as a tool to say, well, now if you're unvaccinated, you still have to wear it to make life difficult until they do take it. But, it's just absurd because obviously you guys are experts. You are trained in the proper way to wear them, the proper fit, the right sizing, all of the ways that make a mask effective, let's just say in the healthcare setting or in a work setting. So maybe if you could just talk a little bit about, how different that is, when kids are just walking around with a dirty bacteria-ridden, pathogen-ridden mask that they've dropped in the bathroom floor 5 times in a day and touched a million times. That's probably transmitting a lot more microbes directly to their face than, what is worn in a hygienic, healthcare setting.
Right. And I want to say something about these schools too, because I think it's important that everybody understands the reason that these schools are keeping your kids locked down and they're refusing to take their boot off the necks of children who don't even suffer from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
If kids get COVID, most of the time they're completely asymptomatic. And if they do show symptoms, it's like a mild cold. The death rate for children is near 0. So what are we doing? The flu kills kids. COVID does not. So why are we handling things this way? There's a reason for it, and it begs the question why. Well, there are millions and millions of dollars. Right now, you guys, your schools are flush with cash. They have received the COVID-19 stimulus dollars, and your kids right now do not matter to them. But in order to take that stimulus money, they have to follow the requirements of receiving that money. And so this is why you are watching them refuse to back off on the requirements with children, because it's part of the stimulus. It's part of the requirements for taking this money. And for the next 7 years, these schools are getting millions of dollars. They're flush with cash right now. So they're not about to stop these mandates because then they will lose the stimulus. Right. So I think it's important that you all understand that. So when you go to your school board meetings and mass and you protest, you address the real issue behind this. It's not the safety and health of your children. It is money. And that's where these school boards need to be held accountable. And you need to recall them. You need to recall these school board officials. You need to recall these school board members, and you need to replace them with parents that actually care. And it can be done, and it is happening around this country. Yeah. But let's talk about, for one thing, like you had said, when masks are worn by the general populace, when we put people in surgical masks or N95 masks or entry-level respirators, it is done very carefully according to OSHA law. And the reason that OSHA created the respiratory protection standard and the PPE standard in 1979 was because we have data that shows when people were just putting on their own masks or face coverings or cloths, maybe a painter to protect from the fumes in the spray, or a drywaller from nuisance dust, whatever. We actually had people dying of heart attacks because people are not all one size fits all. People, we have different cardiopulmonary situations. People have different health risk factors, and not everybody can tolerate working with their mouth and nose covered, because when you cover the mouth and nose, I mean, it's just natural and normal. We're supposed to breathe with no interference. So when you do cover the mouth and nose, and then you're taxing somebody by putting them through their work activities, it really radically stresses the cardiopulmonary system. You have to forcibly inhale and forcibly exhale. It changes your respirations. You're reducing your oxygen intake, and you're also increasing your CO2 intake because you're not able to dispel those waste gases into the atmosphere like you should, where they would be dispersed through ventilation. You're trapping them, and then you're rebreathing those waste gases and causing the CO2 levels to rise, which we just saw a test that proved this with children with carbon dioxide. And Kristen and I have been saying this for a year and a half, that we are going to cause hypercapnia that is very damaging. It causes permanent brain damage. You cannot undo the damage from hypercapnia. The problem is you can't see it happening, and it is damaging parts of the brain. And Kristen and I have traveled with some of the frontline doctors. We've done seminars with them. Dr. Larry Polewski is one. He's a pediatrician, and he's an emergency room physician who has talked about the damage that hypercapnia, that increased CO2, does to children's brains, the frontal lobe in particular. Now, you cannot see this happening, but it is damaging the brain permanently. And so we're creating very serious long-term issues by not allowing our children to breathe properly with those gaseous exchanges incoming and expelling, and the proper ventilation like we were designed to. It's common sense. But, you know, at the same time, we've all bought into this because of the narrative of fear behind it. How do they get us all to comply and go along? They terrify us and scare us to death. And if we don't, we're all going to die. And so we have to remember, this is a virus with a 99.997% survivability rate. For children, it is 100% survivability rate. So what in the world is going on? Why are we creating greater harm? It begs the question that every parent should be asking and answering. We also know children are not spreaders. We now know through scientific tests that anybody that's asymptomatic does not have a high enough viral load to be spreading. So, and that's normal with all viruses. So there is so much more to this, and Kristen can expound on some of the increased dangers and why, when we perform these tests and we do an initial hazard analysis, and then we do the initial risk analysis, so the personal risk analysis, and then we do the fit factor training in the test, why it's a carefully controlled environment. Especially in surgical settings and hospitals. It drives me crazy when doctors and nurses stand up there and say, I wear a mask all day long and it's fine. They are not the subject matter expert on this. And they wear the masks that they wear the way that they wear them for only certain amounts of times because people like us train them. They only know what people in our career fields tell them. They're not credentialed on PPE, on work rest cycles, on the air cycle exchanges happening with ASHRAE standards behind the scenes. They have no idea. So they're really guilty of malpractice when they get up there and they speak as an expert on something in which they are not credentialed. And it drives me crazy. And I've been really calling them out on it because this is what our government is doing. They're taking the white coats and they're putting them out front, the healthcare workers, and saying, see, the doctor says. Well, doctors don't know everything about everything. Doctors heal. They practice medicine. People like Kristen and I in our career fields, we protect. We specialize in pathogen protection. You don't know what you're supposed to wear and why, but we do. We have been highly trained on this and educated on this. So it's very important that people understand who the true experts are, and we all stay in our lane and listen to the true experts. And it's really criminal, and it's very telling that on all these COVID task forces around the country, and even the federal COVID task force, who did we see? Two people, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, neither of whom are practicing physicians. One of whom has such a conflict of interest because he was, now we know through his emails being released, he was single-handedly involved in the creation of this chimerically altered virus. Now he's profiting off of the vaccines to make you healthy from the virus he helped to create. Talk about a conflict of interest. This guy is a criminal. Why are we listening to him? It begs the question, parents, start thinking, start asking the questions, start looking to the real experts who we've been pushed aside. You know, Kristen talks a lot about the multidisciplinary approach. On every pandemic task force, you always have a multidisciplinary approach of experts and professionals. It includes virologists, epidemiologists, doctors, physicians, people like Kristen and I, industrial hygienists, environmental and occupational health and safety professionals. What did we do this time? We abandoned the typical approach to pandemic response, We completely shoved aside the real experts who should have been the frontline people. Kristen and I, we're frontline people in pandemics. We're the people who really help the others to control the spread of the disease through our knowledge of personal protection equipment and things like that, and ventilation controls. So it is very telling how we handled this and how egregious it was. But I'll let Kristen kind of expand on why hospitals are created the way they are, and what is the process and the proper protocols if you do have to wear masks, and why is that different than a kid in a school?
Yeah, so part of my 12 years working in healthcare, I worked mainly in government hospitals. And when I said that I sit on infection control committees and boards, we would look at tracks and trends of what's trending in the community or even worldwide, because one of the hospitals I worked at was a VA hospital. I worked in the military. So, our people were going all over the world. But the irony is, when the infectious disease doctors would come forward with issues that were trending, they came to me to figure out, how do we mitigate these risks? What's the vector? What's the micron size? What's the route of entry exposure? So we know that COVID-19 is aerosolized. And when you are dealing with the hierarchy of controls, which, by the way, are the staple of my profession, and the hierarchy of controls, you have to visualize an upside-down pyramid. And when you visualize the upside-down pyramid, there's like, you've heard the phrase chain of command. Well, think about that in reverse. Before you can go to the bottom of this hierarchy of controls, which is personal protective equipment, respirators, and then masks, which is even on the pyramid, we bypassed that whole pyramid. Like I said, everything that we trained for, we did not do. So I get to this point because the engineering and administrative controls are at the very top, and we ignored them. Actually lost my Facebook I had since 2007. I lost it on August 19th, 2020, made my Facebook rest in peace, because I talked about how we needed to increase our outside air exchanges. Look at the ASHRAE standards, which are ventilation and engineering standards that determine air exchanges per hour based on the room circumference and what you're trying to lift up out of the air. So I talked about these controls, got booted off Facebook, I got deplatformed in multiple areas, but now we have OSHA telling you, oh, now it's required, you have to increase your air exchanges. Now, is this something I invented? Absolutely not. Has this been in my profession for 30, 40 years? Absolutely. So in a healthcare system, now I have been a part of actually designing a healthcare facility, a VA facility, a new hospital, a new expansion. And what I had to do is I had to go behind the scenes and say, this is an isolation room, this is a surgical suite, this is a dialysis room. What type of air exchanges do we need? How many windows? Like, what do we need to make sure that the care that's being provided is done so in a manner that protects the patient and the employees? That's what my role is. So I bring this up because in a surgical room, when you hear people say, well, if masks don't work, why do surgeons wear them? If you say that masks are not designed for prolonged use, why aren't surgeons dropping out? Well, there's two folds to that. The first being, in a surgical suite, if you've ever been semi-awake before you're put under anesthesia, you will notice that the room is very cold. That's because that was a recommendation made by people like Tammy and myself, where we said you must have the temperature low and you have higher air exchange rates. And when you have higher air exchange rates, you're getting more fresh air. Now, it's not so much increased oxygen, it's just newer, fresher oxygen. It's not enriched, because then you might have flammability if you're using like a Da Vinci or laser apparatus surgical tools. But what I'm getting at is when people say, well, these people wear it, why can't we? They are medically cleared to do so. They've had physicals. They've had extensive training on an annual basis on the storage, limbage, usage, limitations, and cleaning of these masks and respirators. But the biggest point that I want to make is, as someone who has worked through a pandemic, I've been there through H1N1 and SARS-CoV-1, how we handled it. I never put our healthcare workers in N95 respirators. I put them in, if you've ever watched The Doctors or Grey's Anatomy, I put them in powered air purifying respirators or controlled air purifying respirators. They're little hoods, because that is a higher level of protection when we have a lot of unknowns with new infectious diseases or viral issues that could be hazardous to the employees. So again, we never did what we trained to do. We've never done what we've done on the book. And you may think to yourself, well, it's just you saying this, Kristen. Why aren't more people speaking up? Oh, they are. But you have to ask an industrial hygienist or an environmental health and safety professional that does not work for the federal government. And the very fact that Tammy brought up the whole multidisciplinary approach and review. Anytime, I used to run a decontamination line for the city of Chicago in the event of a pandemic or, a nuclear event or bio event. And for someone that runs the line, you must ask yourself, why were people from your profession not included? Well, it's obvious, because we would have said you could never wear masks. And if you did need any protection, you would need respirators. I just want to close it out with this. When I was in the military, we used to do practicing of pandemics. Again, I told you I have extensive experience in pandemic preparedness, planning, and response. We put people in, and we didn't tell them, we put masks, just surgical masks, on a lot of our airmen when I was in the Air Force. And we had them, have dummies, and they had to practice decontaminating patients with unknowns. We didn't know if it was a nerve agent, a bio, a viral, whatever. At the end of the exercise, we got out black lights. We used something called a black powder, ultraviolet powder. And we showed them why we do not use masks, why it's better to just use dilution and natural ventilation. Because the places that people touched the outside of their mask, everywhere else they touched, they had it in their hair, on their mouth, in their eyes, everywhere. So when you think that you're wearing a device, it's no different than gloves. When you think you're wearing a device that's protecting you, if you are not trained to understand once you touch it, you must remove it and change it, you are dealing with self-contamination and cross-contamination. And I fully believe, it's my professional opinion as a scientist, that the uptick in numbers that we saw had to do with the prolonged mask wearing. And if you've noticed, yes, viruses can mutate, and that's a great thing, because it means they're less deadly, but more infectious, but less deadly. We're seeing less of these numbers because of the fact that we are dropping the masks, which means our immune systems they're no longer in atrophy. You're going to see colds, you're going to see RSV, you're going to see normal colds and other viruses going around. But again, we did this. We prolonged this. COVID did not do this. Our government did this to us.
Sorry, there was a delay there getting back. Yeah, absolutely did. So Aimee,
That's excellent information. I mean, one thing I would like you guys to talk a little bit about, I think there's so many studies that have been put out there now that parents are leaning on as they get up at these BOA meetings and they speak to, and they're really trying to advocate on behalf of their kids just to stop this insanity. So I would love to hear from both of you. Maybe if you could just focus a little bit on some of the top studies. I know there was a great one in JAMA Pediatrics. There was one by the American Medical Association. Both pointing out the harms of universal mask wearing kids, but also the ineffectiveness. So if you guys have top studies that you feel are the most compelling information, what we do on our show is really try to bring the tools and resources to parents so they can advocate. So I would love to hear from both of you, your opinion of the top studies, so our listeners, can leverage those.
So I know people just want to get their hands on the latest and greatest studies, but here's the thing. A lot of them are being suppressed. So I'm all about a one-stop shop. Unfortunately, I had to take down my website for obvious reasons, hacking. I would implore you to go to Green Med Info. Use DuckDuckGo or an alternative search engine and look up Green Med Info, because I am closely networked with a lot of those medical professionals that are populating that site. And we share the most recent studies up to date, so that's your one-stop shop. Again, Green Med Info. But one thing I would like to reiterate is the fact that the only data that we have with masking the community, a lot of people will say, well, Kristen and Tammy, you guys work in an occupational setting. Yes, but the science is the same. A hazard at work is the same hazard at home. And the reason that most of these studies don't exist in the community, because we never would have thought to mask people 2 and up. That is insane. So the studies that have been done are not even accurate, that even attempt to show that masking works. And again, that's because you might test this mask from this store or this mask from this 3M company. Unless you're testing them all or a large variety of them, there is nothing to support this. But what we do know is that COVID-19 micron size is when you're looking at the diameter, if you can visualize one strand, let me get one for you, one strand of human hair, COVID-19 is 4,000 times smaller than the diameter of one human hair. If you don't think that can get through a mask, I cannot help you. And I'm not trying to be condescending here, but I always tell people go after the root cause. You will not find one study that tells you that masking, the wide array of masks, can stop the mitigation of this virus in either direction. See, COVID doesn't stop and say, oh, I can go this way, but not that way. And that's why you need respirators. We do have the science to back respirators. So if we were talking about a virus that was killing millions and millions of people, I'd raise my hand, I'd help, I'd say, we all need these respirators. But again, that hierarchy of control. So we don't even need those. We need it to be outside. So if you're looking for studies to help your school fight, go to Green Med Info. Please go to the Healthy American, Peggy Hall. Peggy Hall works with Tammy, Clark, and I behind the scenes. We're all networks, and we try to make sure that she has the most high administrative data available to the average layperson. And she's really good about dumbing it down. She's got seminars, so I would really steer you to Peggy Clark, because the data that she's getting, she's not just creating herself, she's actually reaching out to subject matter experts to arm we the people with the data that we need to fight for ourselves and our children.
That's amazing. And I think that the biggest thing that people need to take away from this is really, I say all the time that parents are kind of part of the problem, because we allowed this to happen. We allowed our kids to go back to school with masks on. And I remember at the beginning of the year being in that situation. I have a 13-year-old, so it's very hard after your child has been schooled for such a long time in traditional school to say, well, now you're going to be homeschooled, especially with the virtual schooling experience that many of these children were introduced with. It's very difficult. So parents feel like they're up against the wall, like they don't have options, they don't have choices, they have to follow whatever it is they're being told. We learned today, Aimee and I on a call, that the first 10 days of the school year set the tone for the type of funding that the schools are going to get. So we're definitely going to be planning something going into the school year to boycott the schools that are creating these ridiculous mandates. What suggestions do you both have for parents on how to push back to stop the mandates? And what can they do as far as letters, if there's certain things that they can reference, or all those things on Green Med Info, because people are asking questions as we're on. So if there's any links that you want to post after this live, feel free to go back and just post them in there so people have direct access. We want them to be empowered with any information that will help them to push back.
Okay, yeah, and we can do that. We can provide certain things, certain links. Peggy Hall is my favorite resource center, because all that Peggy does is devote her time to looking up the legal aspect, the OSHA aspects, each state law, and she gives people a lot of direction and resource. And Kristen and I don't have time to do that, but she's a great resource for parents. So if you go to the healthyamerican.org, and you guys can post that link afterwards. Peggy's got tons of resources there. But what I will tell you is that I have been telling parents the same thing. I actually stopped going to school boards because people all around the state of Michigan were asking me to come and testify at their school board. Well, I stopped doing that because what I realized was I would stand up there as an expert, a legal expert in my profession, and I would say, you guys are creating a very unhealthy, sickly population of children by doing this. And these kids don't even get sick with COVID in the first place. So what is wrong with you? What are you doing? Well, I would, they would give me my 3 minutes. And so Kristen and I have rambled really fast like an auctioneer. And then it's like, they hit the button. Thank you very much for your testimony. Next. And then I turn around and I look behind me like, where are all the parents? And they just wanted me to go fight for them. And I finally just said, I'm not doing this anymore. This is not effective. These school boards are not listening. They don't care. What you do need to do, and this is what we've done in Michigan that has been very successful, is you do need to rally your community. You need to get hundreds of parents at those school board meetings, and you need to refuse to take no for an answer. You need to shut that school board meeting down because they're so afraid of you. And by that, let me put this disclaimer out. I don't mean afraid that you're going to harm them, because, we're all labeled domestic terrorists because we dare to stand up for freedom these days. But I don't care. I really don't care what label they want to put on us to make us sound like the bad guys. But what you do need to remember is that when the government fears the people, there's liberty. When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. And that is exactly what we're dealing with today. So parents, yes, shame on you. You sent your kids to school in a mask. You got to swallow that bitter pill. We did this. I didn't, because and Kristen did it, because we have so much information that we could not allow our children to go to school masked up. And I told my son, who is 16, he was 15 at the time, and believe me, we had a lot of tears. There was some depression. There was mental health issues that we had to deal with because he missed his friends. He's very social. But I also told him, buddy, I cannot allow you to do this because I know how harmful it is to you. And as your mom, my number one job is to take care of you and protect you. And if I don't do that, then I'm remiss as a mother. And so we had all these conversations that he had to go through the virtual learning and stay at home, which was very hard. But you know what I did not do? I did not go along with this. And I did not allow my son to be victimized by this. So there are alternatives, and I know it's difficult, but parents, you're your only kids' line of defense. You are it.
Yes.
And so there are things we can do by showing up in mass, hundreds of parents at these school boards. We are actually having recalls now in the state of Michigan because I'm also the executive director for Stand Up Michigan, and we have organized this state, and now we're organizing county by county. And so people are showing up wearing their Stand Up Michigan shirts, going into those school board meetings by the hundreds, and really kind of scaring the bejesus out of these school board members. And they're shutting meetings down, they're calling the police, and we've now actually got recall efforts against the school board members. And one in my own town here resigned after there were a lot of parents that went to this meeting, and we basically said, we cannot trust you with our children anymore, and so our children will not be coming to school here. They will be pulled out. The very next day, this school board member resigned. So we have a vacancy right now that my husband is running for.
Oh, that's great.
That's how we take it back.
Yeah, we need change from the inside out. And I love that message, Tammy, because I
Yes.
was asked to speak at my BOE, and I don't even have kids in the district. I've been homeschooling here in New York for 2 years, and a huge group of my friends said, but you're so great at speaking at this. And, you know, of course I did it with a giving heart, but you're right. Like, every parent needs to stand up for their own children, and they should not feel ashamed. Like, if you're not going to fight for your kids, who will? And there are choices, you know, so I always advocate the parents to say, pull your kids, you know, you can pull your kids and you can homeschool, and parents like me who've done it and parents who've done it for 5 or 10 years can help you. And so Steffi and I are actually going to dedicate a show on that coming up soon, where we have homeschool experts on and we give parents hope so that they realize, you know what, you do have a choice. But where you don't have a choice is to not stand up for your kids. So I love that message. Thank you for sharing that.
If I can add to that, what I tell people is, you know, being military, I learned the whole, trying to clean up my language here. It's not what you complain about, it's the resolution that you also bring along with it. So don't just go to your school board meetings and say, stop these masks, they're this, they're that. While you may be telling the truth, please. A lot of these school districts are just afraid because they feel like they're defenseless. Okay, we're not wearing masks, so we're not protecting people. I need the audience listening to look up the hierarchy of control. That you'll see the pyramid I talked about. Give your schools information about, just go and invest in something. Dilution and destruction technologies are engineering controls. All these PPP loans that schools got could have put devices in their schools that will kill 99% of mold, bacteria, and viruses. Why we didn't do this makes my brain explode. But I just want to kind of end with this. I have a daughter who's 17. She's finishing out her senior year. She did not wear a mask. She had an exemption. And my little 5-year-old went to a private school. I will tell you what, the private school, the head administrator knew what I did, reached out to me. Will you check our chemicals? Will you test our HVAC systems? Will you let us know if we're doing this right? Because we're not masking our children. 7 cases the whole year of COVID-19. And there were teachers, not students. Now the public school denies me entry into the building, won't let me speak at the school board meetings, admonishes me, harasses me, everything. Actually filed a civil rights complaint about them. 2 to 3 cases a day. I'm willing to donate my time to schools in West Michigan, so is Tammy, to give them the tools to learn the engineering controls that are absolutely not that expensive and work better than attempting to mask our children. So please look into the hierarchy of controls. Look into engineering controls for HVAC systems. It's something they just need to get an engineer in there to do, someone to consult and get it done, and they can be safe. So provide resolution, alternative resolution, safer and more accurate controls, which we've been doing now for 40 years.
Yes, scientifically proven. This is why OSHA has the hierarchy of controls. They know that we should start there, but our own government skipped their own hierarchy and swept it right under the rug. So I want to just leave parents with some encouragement, because these are very trying times for our kids. There's been the most horrific mental health crisis created by all of this, and it's very real, and I get it. I understand, because I have a child still school age who's dealing with this, and we're dealing with this as a family like everybody else. But they keep calling this the Great Reset. And every time I hear that, I think, you know, it is an opportunity for us to hit the reset button. Only we need to be the ones to hit the reset button. We need to take it back. We have a window of opportunity as parents. If we can just see the opportunity and the bigger picture, and not let them do what they're trying to do. If we take control and we collectively stand up together, listen, they can't control us if we all stand up. I've been saying this from stage for a year. Yep. So if we all stand up collectively and we refuse to go along, there's nothing they could do. We could end this real fast. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we need to recognize that, yes, this is going to be very difficult. It's inconvenient. And there are, parents, there are single parents. There are some parents that work 2 jobs. There are, families that are in different situations. And I know it's difficult. I know it's not easy. Some people feel like there's no way I can do this. But you need to put your faith into action, because faith without works is dead. And we need to trust that God will honor those of us on the forefront of this. Look, we're the parents on the forefront of change. And when you're a change agent, that is not easy. That means we're going to have the most difficult task of reinventing our education system for our children and our grandchildren. That is going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. It's going to have a lot of challenges, but we can do it because every one of us was born for such a time as this. We were put here for this time. So let's just accept the challenge, rise to the challenge, and take it back for our kids' sake and figure it out together. I'm excited to watch your show. I'm going to be paying attention to your show because I have been telling parents that we need to create co-ops and communities. Mm-hmm. You know what? There are a lot of public school teachers that I talk to in my position that reach out to me for help because they're leaving. The public school teachers are leaving. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get those teachers and then let's get those parents that have children and put them together. Let's create some alternative solutions because we're smart and we can do this. And we have a window of opportunity to hit the reset button on the education system in this country, and we can do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely can.
I also I just quickly wanted to add, because when we talked about studies, and I apologize to the audience, there's just so much data, but I want to point one out. So there was a study done, I believe in January of this year, where they infected primates with COVID-19. Now they put masks on the primates and they conducted air sampling, like grab bag air sampling. 87% of the air samples presented COVID-19. So what does that tell you? Like I told you, the diameter size of COVID-19, it goes straight through the mask, straight to the side, straight to the top. Air will always travel through the path of least resistance, but it goes straight through the front. And then when you're dealing with soiled and caked and overworn, prolonged use mask, that caked mask, it just kicks right back. And then what happens is, not only is this virus aerosolized, you are creating further aerosolization of the particulates. The trajectory changes. And if this was about health and safety, I want people to understand. I'm getting a little mad because, I've been mad, okay? I'm going to send Victor my wine bill. But anyway, I get mad because when you think about the children in schools, when you think about hazards and aerosols, all public restrooms should have had toilet seats. You train people with administrative controls, close the seat. We're aerosolizing. We spread COVID through waste, through fecal matter. But what did we do? We had the hand dryers. We create a plume, a further trajectory. See, when you cough, that 6 foot range that you're hearing, that's an old public health calculation based on a sneeze and a cough. Now, when you put on a mask, plenty of studies and calculations have been done by people in my profession that show when you put on a mask, you are increasing the trajectory of those aerosols, now 18 to 20 feet. And guess how long that can stay in the air when you don't have proper air exchanges? On an average of up to 20 to 30 days.
Wow.
Grocery store, you had a COVID-19 positive patient, cool, they're in a mask, but you didn't increase the air exchanges. So now little Billy walking in, it's dropping down. And I studied the movement of air for 4 years. It was boring, but now I've been putting it to use more than ever. But people need to understand, if this was about the health and safety, we would have shut down, like I said, the hand dryers. We wouldn't have let people wear masks in bathrooms. We wouldn't have put people in masks in the first place. We would have followed the hierarchy of control to ensure that not only employees, but our students were in a safe environment. Instead, this was about control, and it's absolutely criminal.
Well, and that's why those states that took the masks off and had the fewest mandates actually had the fewest numbers. Because we increased COVID numbers by doing exactly the opposite of what we should have done. So The science is there. Follow the science.
And they clearly they weren't following the science. They did the opposite.
It's so frustrating. Like Kristen said, we are just mad because they come on, these public officials, and they say, especially Michigan here, we're dealing with Governor Whitmer. She comes on and says all the time, I'm following the science and the data. And I think, and the science is settled. And I think, yes, it is settled. And you're not following it. You are creating a much unhealthier population by doing exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. And no, you do not have any science or data. We have FOIA'd everything that she is relying on. And once we got that back from Gordon, from Director Gordon of the health department, and we looked at that and we realized it was nothing but junk. It was op-eds. There was no science or data there. He resigned 2 days later.
Wow. Good for you guys. That's shameful. That's great though.
Speaking of resignations, you'll hear people say, well, we're following CDC guidance. We're following CDC guidance. Okay, well, the CDC is not a governing body, and people don't understand how they're affiliated with the government. But yes, there are industrial hygienists that work for the CDC and Department of Health and Human Services. Have you seen one single IH or EHS professional speak during any press conference from the CDC? No. And tell me why there's several job openings, because they're all resigning. These people have reached out to us behind the scenes. They will not push this propaganda. And you have to understand, I know we are not doctors, we are scientists, we are medical professionals. We also have an oath. And if we thought masks work to protect against the virus, we would be donating. We would be handing them out in the community. Instead, we are dealing with something that is creating greater harm. And when we select personal protective equipment, force control, anything, we first ask ourselves, is it safe? And then 2, is it effective? Well, it's not even safe as a one-size-fits-all. And the most important thing, because I mentioned earlier, is that my daughter had a medical exemption. When I hear doctors who are not credentialed in occupational health as doctors, and they say there are very rare exemptions, I've been in my career field for almost 19 years. Coming to the top of my head, I believe there's just about 63 medical conditions that exempt you from wearing a mask or respirator in the workplace. And without getting too personal, as someone who had to wear every type of respiratory protection known to man, you name it, SCBA down to an N95, I have held an exemption, meaning I am not medically qualified to wear a mask or respirator since 2013. And when I hear people go on the media and say they're rare, not only is it offensive, it's inaccurate, and it's malpractice. Because if you are not an occupational health doctor that approves these exemptions, you do not know what you're talking about. And the most common, just so our people know, are allergies, asthma, PTSD, claustrophobia, anxiety, history of cancer, collapsed lungs, stroke, sinus issues, allergies, people that have issues with, usually people that are minorities or have dark skin, they have issues with, they break out easily with their skin, sensitive skin issues. So there's dermal issues. There is a wide array of reasons that people cannot mask up or wear respirators. And it is so disrespectful and criminal to ignore what has been on the books since the 1970s.
It's so helpful to hear that, because I remember at the height of this being in the situation, I had my first panic attack at 42 years old inside of a Home Depot, wearing a mask, not even understanding what was happening to me. Like all of a sudden, the sweaty palms, the increase in the heart rate, the dizziness, the nausea. I had a list this long. And when I have a honey-do list, I am very determined to complete every item on that list. Within 8 minutes of being in Home Depot, I had to leave. And I think about all the time what these poor kids are going through. And you think about the mental health challenges. I mean, just the changes that I've seen in my son. Now we're getting back to somewhat normal because it's starting to feel more normal. But I worry about what the future will bring and the issues that we're creating that we don't even know that we're creating at this point. So I'm so thankful to the both of you for being here, for being the voice and being the change that we wish to see in the world. We need brave warriors like the two of you out there with your expertise and the way that you're able to communicate this really important information. But like you said, Tammy, it is up to the parents. We can have all the experts that we want. We need parents to stand up. I've said so often in these last couple of weeks, you get to choose your heart. It's really hard to have to pull your child out of school, pull your child out of college, make these decisions that feel life-altering. But we don't really know what hard will be in the coming years, because what's really hard is health issues. Without your health, the foundation of your entire life is rocked. So I want to remind parents that the inconveniences that come from work disruptions or having to take your child out for a temporary period of time, to prove your point, pale in comparison to what we're talking about here tonight. So we have to choose the hard road now in order to pave the way for freedom, the freedom to breathe fresh air, the freedom to our bodily autonomy, the freedom to decide for our own families what goes into our bodies and what does not, what goes on our face and what does not. So the message is so important right now, and we're so thankful that you joined us tonight with everything that you shared. We got so many positive comments, so definitely go on and take a look when you have a chance. We will share all the resources, and we'll definitely have you come back soon. I mean, I think as we move through these next couple of months, there's going to be lots of things that are coming up. I would love to devote an entire show just to talking about, expanding on that one topic that you were talking about. I don't know if it was Kristen or Tammy, just with the differences between the environments in the hospital and the environments inside the school. I thought about Jenna Miller, that 13-year-old girl that we had on that was sitting in an 86-degree classroom with her mask on, and how this is okay. So there's so much more. We literally just hit the surface tonight. So we'll definitely have you back on when your schedule allows. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, ladies. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure. And you're right, there's so much more we could get into. We just have scratched the surface of this. So
Right.
I'd love to come back and see you another time.
Absolutely. We'll have you back.
Thank you so much for having us. I know we can be long-winded, but we have almost combined 40 years in this.
I feel like I want more. Notes.
Sorry for the acronyms. I did see a comment about HVAC. That stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It's your systems in your home and in businesses that control the air.
Perfect. Thank you so much for clarifying.
Thank you, ladies.
The information, and we'll definitely be speaking to you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow.
Great stuff, right?
Great stuff. We got so many great comments. For those of you that are watching, there is so much more to come. One of the things that I think we really need to drive home is that whole Board of Ed thing. You know, I'm running for my Board of Ed in my town. So if you live in my district, come find me. I need your signature. It's really a lot easier. Yay.
Good. I'm glad.
I'm excited. One more thing to add to the plate. We'll just figure out where to fit it. But it's so important right now because, like you said, these changes are going to come from the inside out. So we need to have a voice.
Yep. And I love Tammy's message. Like, you can't have advocates there and experts there only doing the work. Every parent needs to hold the line, stand up for your children, speak up. I mean, everybody has a part to play in this if they want to affect change. So I loved that message from her.
And it rolls perfectly into our next guest because
we have 2 surprise guests tonight. Our viewers don't even know about.
We always have surprises for all of you.
We do.
So much information out there. But yeah, it's amazing to me because you think about the mandates in the colleges with the vaccines, and if people are choosing to file religious exemptions, a lot of them are getting feedback saying, okay, we'll accept your exemption, but you have to get PCR tested weekly. You have to wear a mask. You have to be socially distant. You can't be on certain parts of the campus. The list goes on and on and on. So the challenge and the struggle right now for college-age students and their parents is absolutely real. Very tough decisions are being made behind the scenes. Families are sitting down at tables trying to figure out what life looks like in this new place that we're in the country. And we have some simultaneous rallies happening. And I'm so happy that we have 2 people on, both from different walks of life. I mean, Kate Corrigan we've had on in the past. She is a powerhouse advocate out there in New York. She's had some amazing stuff happen in the last couple months. She started a website, studentagainstmandates.com. She was speaking at her Board of Education. We weren't able to show that video, but we have to get it on one of these days because her courage is absolutely contagious. And then we have a mom of a rising senior in the College of New Jersey, Lisa Solcente, who is also planning a protest here in New Jersey. So we're so excited to welcome you both to the Community Corner. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Hey, Kate. Welcome back, Kate.
Thank you so much for having us on the show.
No, we're so happy to have you both. So
yes.
I want to just start with the biggest thing for me when it comes to this work is the why. Because people don't choose to be involved with medical freedom and unmasking the students and all the things that we've thrown ourselves into in these last couple of years. So for you right now, Kate and Lisa, you're both on different sides of this. You know, you being a student, Kate, you being a parent, Lisa, how has this climate with the mandates, the masks, the potential mandates for vaccines, how has it impacted your life and your homes? And what are the conversations behind the scenes?
Definitely. I mean, I think that this has just affected my life entirely. I was basically a graduate student from Earlham School of Religion, and I had a longstanding religious exemption that it was accepted for 5 years that I was a student for my bachelor's degree and for my master's degree. And basically the school had sent out a notice saying, okay, we are actually going to be requiring proof of COVID-19 vaccination to attend graduation. And so I was in a difficult situation. I notified my school of my religious exemption. I reminded them, and then they said, oh, we're not accepting that for this round. And so basically I told them what the law was, what rights I have that are protected both under Indiana state law and under the Constitution. My school is in Indiana. And I fought really hard to change the policy, and I was successful in that. I changed the policy where they were requiring both proof of COVID vaccination and proof of a negative COVID test. So they changed their policy, but right after they changed that policy, I was harassed, threatened. My character and reputation were defamed by not only students and alumni, but professors, my academic advisor, and even the president of the school, Ann Houtman. And so it came at a grave risk. I was removed from an online summer class. I was denied the right to a fair and equal education. And this class was all online. So, I mean, we're seeing a major shift in society where there's so much hatred against people who are declining the vaccine or even questioning it. And so, that's why I started Students Against Mandates, because I experienced this hatred back in May, and so that's what students are going to, hopefully not at the same level, because it was really egregious what happened to me, and I have my whole story online and on my website, as well as videos of me speaking out about this. But it's so crazy what's happening in our society, and students are getting hit really hard by this. And what's so important is it's great that we have parent support. We need parents fighting with us. But the thing is that parents, you're going to send your students, send your kids to these institutions, and they will have to be dealing with this segregation, dealing with the discrimination in the classroom, outside the classroom, in extracurricular activities, if they will even be able to participate in these. I mean, I've heard schools are saying, oh, well, you're declining the vaccine, you can't be on the sports team anymore, or you can't participate in extracurricular activities, or you can't live in your fraternity or sorority or in this house, you have to live off campus. And so, it's changing our lives drastically. It has changed my life drastically. What happened to me was really horrific. My professor was really harassing me, and I'm actually going to start a master's program at Boston University this fall, and he was threatening to contact them to basically have my full tuition scholarship removed. So, this definitely continues to affect me today. But I will continue to keep fighting for students. And like I said, what's so important is that, students work on this and they become knowledgeable about these issues and form a plan. So Students Against Mandates is a community. We have a Facebook group to basically help students formulate what they're going to do, how to write religious exemption letters, what laws and freedoms they have protected underneath the Constitution, as well as, state laws as well. And so, and being able to make, appropriate decisions and plan in advance.
I love it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all you're doing, Caitlin. I love that you're, advocating as effectively as you are, and that we have a fresh, young voice out there as a wonderful role model, just really showing and paving the way for other students, because there's not a lot of students that have the courage like you do to learn and know your rights and to advocate for yourself. So kudos to you. Lisa, we'd love to hear from you in terms of what's happening in your world and with your children. If you could share a little bit as your why as well.
Yes. Yeah. So my son is a rising senior at the College of New Jersey, and we got this letter. The first email we got, I guess the students got, but then the parents got, was that we wouldn't be following Rutgers mandate. And if you're familiar with that, that was kind of the first college to start this off. And then, you know, in TCNJ, you know, it accepted freshmen in, agreed to housing. Some people got, you know, the 4-year housing, athletes came in, you know, you got your RAs, your housing was all set up, and they throw this email out, probably, I think it was a few weeks ago, that just changed everybody's world. And so what they've decided is that the vaccinated students are allowed to go back to the old way of going to school. No masks, everything's normal, the very old way before COVID. And the unvaccinated have to fit these strict criteria in order to be included into the campus lifestyle. So they have to wear masks in the classrooms, in the dining halls, in the student centers, you know, anywhere where there's other students. They have to be that 6 feet. So basically we're going back to COVID restrictions that we all had to comply by. They cannot live on campus, which is super upsetting for freshmen that already agreed to the contract, already agreed to, you know, think about a freshman coming in and, you know, saying no to 10 other schools and picking TCNJ as their school and then agreeing to housing, right? And then all of a sudden in June, our president decides to throw this on us, that so no freshman's allowed to live on the campus. No unvaccinated child can, but I feel really bad for freshmen in that way. My son's a rising senior. They have to be COVID tested 1 to 2 a week. That's a whole nother argument we're having, because they won't even tell us if it's well, we actually got an answer that it's a swab test, but we would rather a spit test. We'd rather no test, but they won't even offer that for us. So that's a problem for us. The professors, here's another one. The professors will be informed who's unvaccinated. So they are going to make sure that your child's sitting in the classroom wearing the mask. And so we have a problem with professors knowing the children's information. Obviously, the students are going to know who's vaccinated, who's not. So now we're getting into this area of like, people are knowing our medical information, because it's either going to be a medical exemption or a religious exemption. They're going to know that they're not vaccinated. They might know that, you know, they might know that it's a religious thing. So there's privacy issues for us here. They are excluded from, as the guest was saying, they will be excluded from clubs, organizations, sports, anything with close contact. And here's another one. If they are contact traced and test negative, not positive, negative, they have to quarantine. And we can't get any answers about what that even means. There's no virtual learning. There's no Zoom. So we don't understand how, if they got quarantined as a healthy child, how they get into class. So it's just insane. I don't even know what to say to this, except that we have been emailing. I have stacks of emails and questions that parents have had, and they just are telling us they're standing with their criteria. I mean, as your previous guests were saying, it's a lot of lies, a lot of misinformation. Obviously, them forcing masks right there is misinformation. So it's very, very hard for us to have these honest conversations. I was actually hoping that we would confidently be able to find a compromise to this, but it doesn't appear that TCNJ is even interested.
Wow. I mean, that's horrific.
It is.
I mean, it's such gross human rights and civil rights violation and privacy rights, your medical, religious, you know, discrimination. I mean, there needs to be massive lawsuits for all of that, because the way they're treating, you know, a child who's not at risk, we know that, and could have possibly had the infection, have natural antibodies. I mean, it's just awful. Discrimination and segregation is just horrific. I'm so sorry that you're having to deal with that, but thank you for picking up the fight and, you know, helping other parents realize that, again, you have to stand up in numbers. So it's great that we have both of you on the show tonight. You both are organizing rallies in each of your neck of the woods in Long Island, New York, and in New Jersey. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to share with our audience, you know, what's happening with these rallies, and encourage people to come and attend, and a little bit about them. So Lisa, if you want to maybe continue and talk about what's happening in New Jersey, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if you have any questions, if you are TCNJ parents, we also have a group that we have Rowan, and we have Rutgers, and we have Ramapo. We have other New Jersey colleges in our group. It's actually a messenger group. It's called the Concerned TCNJ Parents, but we have other parents that are concerned too. But we are having a rally. It's at TCNJ on July 19th. It's a Monday, so I guess that's next Monday, right? If I can do the math correctly. Families for Medical Freedom, that's in Ewing, New Jersey, on Pennington Road at the college. For more information, you can go to NewJerseyStandsUp.org. So it's www.NewJerseyStandsUp.org. We have amazing speakers coming. Stephanie, I think you're one of them, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. We have Dr. Liam, we have Phil Rizzo, we have Stephanie, and we definitely have some students that want to speak up. But we are asking, because New Jersey has been known for our amazing ability to keep religious and medical exemption right before COVID hit. So we have an amazing group of parents and students, and I can't tell you that we need you guys more than ever, because it is about to go down. So they are coming after your kids. They are coming after your college kids. And I bet you K through 12 is next. I would bet my money on it. And as you guys said in the beginning, mask equals vaccine. There's no other way around this one. So I am calling the herd. I am calling you guys to come, because 30 parents or 30 students isn't going to cut it. We need as much people to come to TCNJ next week as possible.
Absolutely. If you're in the area, drive down. Many of us have been to Trenton before. If you're in New Jersey and you're in this fight, you've definitely been to Trenton, so you're familiar with the landscape.
Right down the road.
Right down the road. Come on down, set yourselves up, bring lots of water, make sure that you're set up to, be there for 2 hours. I know that it's hot. I know people have work. We can make excuses or we can make it happen. And the truth of the matter is, if we don't make it happen now, things are going to get a whole lot worse going into September and the school year. So be there. There's going to be lots of inspiration. Connect with students and parents who are going through the same thing as you. There's nothing more valuable than what we're doing right now, creating this connection, bridging the gap, letting people know that they're not alone. And when we're together in mass, we're so powerful. So I'm excited to see all of you there. And on Long Island, we have a concurrent protest going on for the same cause. So it's just amazing to see how our movement is just growing and people are just doing things all over the place. So Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about what you have going on?
Definitely. So Students Against Mandates is having their first rally. There will be many more to come. And basically, we are rallying against the Stony Brook University mandates. And so that will be on the same day, July 19th at 5 p.m. And that's at the second parking lot of the Stony Brook train station. And so there's a large parking lot there. We have a large variety of speakers, from religious leaders to representatives on Long Island. And then we have a lot of great groups that are actually sponsoring the event. So Children's Health Defense is one of them, Young Americans for Liberty. We have Moms for Liberty of Suffolk and Nassau County. The Constitutional Coalition of New York is coming down from upstate New York to come and support us. The Long Island Loud Majority, the Family Freedom Endeavor, We the People, USA, PAC, New York Alliance for Vaccine Rights, the Autism Action Network, and then the New Jersey Freedom Connect group is also supporting us. So we have a lot of different groups coming. So it'll be really, really exciting. And I just want to add something to what Lisa said in regards to, these mandates. It's so egregious what's happening right now in our society, and it's creating a lot of hatred against people that choose not to obviously get the shot. And so what I do want to say is, when students do write these religious exemption letters, that to include in them a statement of confidentiality, that you're requesting that this information that the fact that you're requesting a religious exemption is confidential, and it should only be shared with the one or select few people that have to review it. And so I think that's really important. On my website, Students Against Mandates, I have an outline of what to write in your religious exemption letter, even if it's like a non-medical exemption letter, which I know a lot of schools in Connecticut are using. So it's a really great resource, I think, for students, for parents that are writing religious exemption letters, that to make sure you include that confidentiality statement, because you don't want your student, or you don't want yourself, if students are on this call, to be a target, because that's what they're trying to make you into, and trying to force you to make you feel so uncomfortable that you have no other choice but to get this experimental shot. So it's so important to make sure that confidentiality statement is included in there. And it can only just be like 2 sentences, but it's really important to include that.
I love that. Thank you so much. So let me just
Great reminder.
Times 12 to 2 p.m. in Trenton, New Jersey at the College of New Jersey is the New Jersey protest. If you're planning to do both, kudos to you. You can make it happen. And then from 5 to 7 p.m. at Stony Brook University in Long Island. So if you live close to either of those places within driving distance, make it a priority to be there. It is important for us to show numbers right now. It is important to show that parents and students are activated, grandparents are activated. I mean, there are so many people coming out right now against what we're doing to our children, our college-age students. It is time to stop the madness. So we are so thankful to both of you for being here, for the work that you're doing. It is a true testament to what every single person watching right now, whether you are a parent or a student, we must be brave. We must be the example. We must be the ones to go out first, because whenever you go out first, people will follow. You will get love and you will get hate, and you will take it all and you will utilize it as fuel to continue in this fight that we are all embarking on, that is going to affect generation after generation of children to come. So just know that we are on the right side of history. It may feel a little isolating sometimes, but you are never alone. So I'm so happy you both got the opportunity to meet each other and to be here. I will be in Trenton. My heart will be with you, Kate, in Stony Brook.
I'll be there. I'll be there in Stony Brook with Kate.
Yeah. We'll be there.
So thank you so much, guys, for coming on tonight. It was great to have you on, and let's get to those rallies on the 19th.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Bye.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
So
Jam-packed, huh?
Is I got a message on here today, and on the 14th of July, I was going to say September. You know what I'm saying? Okay,
Yeah.
so on July 14th, which is this Wednesday at 9 a.m. at the Department of Education in New Jersey, it's 100 Riverview Plaza in Trenton. There's going to be a gathering of people there because there is a BOE meeting happening. So there is an opportunity in New Jersey if you want to sign up to be a speaker at that event, if you want to show up to create a little bit of noise outside of the location that they're having the meeting. We need a presence there as well. So if you can do both, that would be fantastic. Right now, everything is important. There is no one thing that's more important than the other. So just know that these opportunities are here for you, and this is your opportunity to show up. So it's time to go to all the tools and resources, because how many emails a day do you get of people saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go?
Yes, we can't keep up. So we are trying to bring you as much tools and resources and things that you can use to fight these mandates, to push back and to advocate for your rights. So we're actually going to just take a couple minutes here. I know it's been a long show. We'll do this lightning quick. Stephanie's going to pull up our website. We're going to walk you through where to find some of this information. So first of all, if you're not signed up for our email blast, please sign up. Go to the upper right corner, click free sign up, enter your email, and you will get emails from CHD, specifically articles from the Defender, any alerts we have, any important information and tools. Also, right on the homepage, you see that button, Take Action. That is our advocacy portal. If there's any major petitions or action alerts or things where we need you to pay attention to and to take action, click that. There'll be details on how to do it, form letters, how to sign up. Don't forget, our show is every Monday night on CHD Live. So you just click there and you can see our show, as well as Polly and Mary's show, Bobby's podcasts, and the People's Testament, which is a new show that Polly's doing that's featuring, unfortunately, some of these victims from the COVID injection. So people being harmed and hurt or killed from the injection. So great shows, great content, all here on CHD Live. And then we have our community page. So if you click on the menu button, come down to the Defender, and then all the way down to community. This is where we have grassroots activity and events. We have our calendar, any events that's coming up, any town halls or webinars, things that you can show up to, rallies, articles of interest, news, information, everything here that has to do with grassroots activity. And we also have our COVID mandates toolkit. So there's an entire toolkit that we've put together that basically explains, how to send these letters to the colleges. If you come right on the homepage, you can see it, fighting mandates. You click that right there. It's toolkits, resources. We have letters explaining how, the vaccine as well as masks are EAU products, only emergency usage authorization. You can serve your school or your employer with legal notices to inform them of that and the fact that it's actually a violation of federal law to mandate it. We have a number of different letters that talk about the harms and risks and why they cannot be mandated and how it goes against religious rights and other rights. So you'll have different letters you can use for your college, universities versus employers, and just a plethora of studies and information. So we are trying to bring you as much tools and resources and information to arm you with so that you can stand up for your rights, stand up for your own rights, share it with your community, share it with your friends, share it with other moms, parents in your neighborhood. And just like Tammy said earlier in our show, one of our guests, we can't expect other people to fight the fight for you. You have to, jump in and do this for your own children and for yourself. And unfortunately, it is a hard battle. You're going to be up against major institutions, major companies that are going to try to force this upon you, but you have every right to just say no. So our job is to bring you the tools, resources, information to allow you to do that. And the information that we know is not getting out there, it's getting suppressed and censored. So tune in each week for more information. Stephanie and I are trying our very best to give all of that to you. And is there anything else I'm forgetting, Stephanie, in terms of...
No, I think we got all the resources. There's lots of things working behind the scenes. We're going to be bringing monthly advocacy days through CHD coming soon. So we'll be connecting in a local city or community near you to get out there, get in front of the censorship, get out into the community and start to create those in-person connections, having those really important conversations. So this is the time right now to step up and be a defender of children's health, be a defender of freedom, be a defender of truth, plant the seeds and have the hard conversation so that our future moves in the direction of health, happiness, and freedom for our children. It will happen only with the efforts of everything that all the parents and students and grandparents and everybody that's activated right now. We are the ones that will be the change makers. So know that you have the power inside of you. You have the passion, you have the why, you have everything that you need to jump in and get involved with us. We cannot do it alone. We need all of you to roll up your sleeves and do this work. It can be hard, but believe me when I tell you, it will be worth it when our children can breathe free, live free, and be healthy. That is our goal. So join us next week, 9 p.m. We'll be back with you with another show with information and resources to help to support you during this really difficult time. We're so excited to be able to provide this to you. And any questions, anything that you need, you can reach out to us in our inbox, advocacy@childrenshealthdefense.org. We do check that inbox. So reach out to us with any questions. If you have events going on in your area that are related to the topics that we're covering, we want to know about them. We want to add them to our community calendar. We want to be able to have you come onto the show, write an article about it so people know what's happening. So feel free to share any of that information with us. We're looking forward to seeing you all next week, sharing some more information, and we are sending you all so much light, so much love, and so much strength. Have faith and know that when a group of committed individuals get together and do the work, we will win this. So anything else, Aimee, that you want to add in closing?
No, that was it. So get in touch with us with any questions you have or any information you want us to cover, advocacy@childrenshealthdefense.org, and we will see you all next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.